Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Beatrice Hyppolite and this is your world.
So, as I mentioned, dementia is one of the big ones, right? I mean, if you're taking care of somebody who has the cognitive skills to understand you and listen, and you can, engage in problem solving together, that's obviously better. But when there's dementia involved, it's often the person's deteriorating too. It can be very, very frustrating for the caregiver to watch, and they're also grieving. They're grieving for the loss of this family member too, because they're now no longer the same person. So dementia is particularly difficult. But there are a lot of other situations too where caregivers are doing actual medical procedures, where they actually have to do a lot of medical care. Give medications or give injections, or I've even known one caregiver who got trained how to give her mom IVs. So there's a lot of situations now where caregivers are doing something that may have been done in the past by a nurse or clinic. Now they're doing things at home, feeding tubes, giving medication through injection or through the tube or whatever. So there's a lot of caregivers are not just making sure the family member is safe and clean and not they're also doing actual medical procedures or medical care. So that's another type of caregiver. So they get trained, and they get trained by the hospital or trained by the provider, but then they're on their own, right? So I like to think that the agency that I work for, the agencies I have worked for, like we're there to support somebody like that, to make sure we give them a break, we come in and do some of these things, the nurses or come in and help, because that's a huge responsibility.
It is. But you know what? I think, because I'm not in the field, I probably will be scared, to do certain things that I know that nurses normally do.
And I think it could be very rewarding for a caregiver to get that experience and like be able to accomplish this and be able to do it right. But often they get incredibly burdened by that. And also the stress of, what if I'm doing it wrong? Am I doing,
that would be
like the fear in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, there's nobody here but me. Those situations, very, very adds another layer of stress to the caregiver.
According to research, stress and anxiety are a big component among caregivers.
Yeah, and there are some assessments that any provider can do, whether you be a social worker, an occupational therapist, physical therapist, nurse. There are some assessments you can do on the caregiver to measure their stress.
Okay, so let me get that out.
There's 3 different that I found that are available online, so you don't have to pay for it or go out and get certification or whatever. But the most famous one is by Zarit, the Burden Interview. So it started off with a longer 29 in 1980, but they've reduced it down to 22 questions, and they even have a shorter version. So if you're not able to sit and spend a lot of time with the caregiver, they do have some shorter ones. There's also one that's developed by the American Medical Association that you can find on their website, the Caregiver Self-Assessment Questionnaire. Again, a bit shorter, 18 questions. So these are really good tools for you to really show the caregiver that, number one, you care and they're important, you want to help them. Number 2, to look for red flags. Like, is this caregiver's stress like on the highest level? Then maybe they need some intervention like very quickly. It's either immediate help for the caregiving or some mental health services, some way for them to reduce their dangerously high stress level. So I definitely recommend that if you're working with caregivers, that when you get the chance if you see that their burden and their stress level, to do one of these assessments, short or long.
And based on the result, to strongly encourage them.
Yes, and when you do these assessments with them, you're asking them the questions and you're scoring it right there with them, and you're showing them. You're all this is from 0 to 4, and you've got most of your questions are answered with a 4. you can even show them this is not good. This is, you're very much at risk. But obviously you want to develop that. There's one of them that's only 4 questions. So they've developed different ones. The Zarat Caregiver Burden Assessment, they've developed different lengths, obviously depending on how much time you have, how much time you can give the caregiver. So there's shorter ones and longer ones, kind of give you just a quick idea what's really going on. And then from there you can plan your interventions and bring in your social worker, recommend maybe mental health by telehealth, because they're obviously not going to be able to go out and go to see, most likely go out for counseling out of the home or out of the facility, but maybe they can have like telehealth, maybe help them, connect them with mental health services.
And pay, for the therapists to come to your house too.
Exactly. So really, if you see that very high level on your assessment, you need to notify your other members of the team, but you can't just sit back and say, they've got a high stress level. Well, that's somebody else's problem. It's my problem. It's my problem. This is like 911. Like, I've got to do something quickly. This could be an emergency.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Sheelagh, there's some of the risk factors, if we were to consider lack of support.
Right. Lack of support, where they're not engaging or linked in with organizations that can help them. And maybe there's a lack of trust, but if you develop the trust with them and good organizations, you can lead them there once you've got the trust. I know this agency. I know they're very good. I know this place over here can help you. Another thing is to try to connect them maybe with the community resources that they do know, they do have. Churches are a big one.
Yes.
I'll ask them, did you get support from your church, from your synagogue, from your mosque, like from your, what do you believe? Especially if I'll be paying attention in the house to see any religious, things in the house. Also, if they have things from the church, I'll be like, oh, you belong to such and such church? And say, have you had any support from the church? Well, no, I haven't called a priest. I haven't let them know. They offered to come, but I didn't call them back. Why don't you call them back? Why don't you let them come and bring you meals, bring you support, help you with transportation? A lot of churches have volunteers that would be happy to drive people to appointments or bring some food or just even come for a visit. If it's, Catholic church or the Episcopal church that I belong to, they'll bring communion. They'll come and sit. Could be a lay person that will bring. These are really good resources. Or again, maybe other community organizations. Well, that's always the hot issue, right? You have the situation where you might have one adult child that's taking care of mom or dad, and then the other adult children are other places in the country or not, or they're busy, they're not helping. So it even makes the caregiver's job even worse because they're annoyed that they're not getting support. So working with them on how to communicate with the other family members and let them know, I need help. One of the biggest things I think about all of these caregivers is just encouraging them to ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm not doing well. You think I'm doing great, but I'm burning out.
Yeah, sometimes, people, tend to believe, if I ask for help, so I may be seen as being weak or helpless. No. If you are in need for help, just ask for it.
Absolutely.
Because, so I may see you look okay, but deep down, I don't know what you are really dealing with. But you know it. You know yourself. You know your body. So if you have the need and you feel that you need assistance, go out there and ask for it.
That's what I feel it's so important to develop that relationship with the caregiver. Even in the beginning, they might be a little bit defensive or that, private, or maybe they are proud of what they're doing and they really are doing a good job at it, but it's starting to take a toll on them. But you're just watching for the signs and developing that relationship. Show them that you want them to be a part of the care plan. You want them to be involved. That's another important thing anyway, because if you're going to make recommendations for the client, the caregiver has to be on board. So making sure you include them in everything. Mm-hmm. So if you're discussing something with the client, like in my case, I might be discussing a piece of equipment or home modification for something they're going to change in their home. I want you to also, what do you think? What are you, do you agree with this? I want to hear your opinion. Bring the caregiver in on that as well.
Because that person is the one dealing with the patient on a daily basis.
And I will even do that a lot with paid caregivers. So there'll be, a lot of my clients have 24-hour or, many hours a day with the one caregiver or two caregivers. What do you think? Do you think this will work? Are you in? What do you think about this idea? Or do you, how do you find things are going? I always will ask their opinion. Most recently, a caregiver, I never even met her before, and I went in to see the client. She's like, "Oh, help! I need help. She's having a problem with her skin pressure area." Like, she was so glad to just have somebody to tell. She was very worried about it. And she wanted to share. And are you going to do something? Yeah, I'm going to do something right away. I'm going to get a better cushion, a better bed. Thank you. She was actually very anxious. So really worried about the client. So again, just paying attention, having conversations with them.
I like when you say that she was really paying attention to the patient.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there are some caregivers who treat their clients as family.
I know. It's wonderful to see. And I always encourage people who are afraid of hiring a caregiver. Oh, I can't have a stranger taking care of my mom. I was like, start interviewing people. Start getting some people from the agency to come, or from another agency, whatever agency you want to use. I guarantee you're going to find that right person. And that person is going to become a part of your family. Because without a doubt, if they might not be the first person they have or the second person, but they will find somebody that will become a great caregiver. Mm-hmm. But they have to have patience and they have to try. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, no, there'll never be anyone that's going to be as good for mom, dad as me. You know what? You're burning out and you have to find somebody.
Let me tell you, I'm going to share this with you. May her soul rest in peace. That lady, before she died, had a caretaker, I don't know for how long, but they created such a healthy bond. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. During COVID, so it's like, the family decided that, it was scary due to her health condition. They didn't want to bring people around.
They didn't want company. Everybody was afraid to have people come in and out.
Exactly. And for the fact that, in New York, so it's like the government can pay family members to take care of the loved ones. So somebody came with the idea for the daughter who used to live at that time in the same building as her to kind of take on the position. To make a long story short, bear in mind, the daughter every day will go to her mother's house, like more than once or twice a day. And when the idea of her taking the job came on the table, she's like, are you guys crazy? If I send that lady out, my mother will die. Mm-hmm. Because it's not a caretaker and a patient. It's a mother-daughter relationship that I've seen going on between those two.
Yeah,
and the daughter didn't take the job. She said, no, we're going to manage.
She knew what was best.
Exactly.
And she probably also knew her own limits too. Like we all should, know our limits. We're not always good at that, especially health providers. We think we can do it all, work and take care of everyone, but you have to know your limits. And you have to put your hand up and say, that's
but she
not for
understood
me.
The relationship that her mother had with that home attendant.
Right.
She understood and appreciated and valued it. And say, you know what?
Right.
And
she knew what was best.
And you know what? The worst part, she went and took on the same job, with somebody else. But because she saw the relationship that her mother had with her caretaker, she didn't want to get on the line.
You don't want to mess that up.
No.
Which I always do encourage people. I'll say, let's start with a home health aide. Let's start with a couple of hours a day. I don't usually recommend people because it's always difficult. You should always try to keep your boundaries. Mm-hmm. Like I might come across people over the years say, oh, if you know anyone, give them my number and stuff like that. But I'll encourage people to go through the agencies or other agencies, because there's a lot of agencies out there now, mm-hmm. and just keep trying till you find the right person. You will find the right person.
You will find the right person.
Because there's good people out there that are really caring,
exactly.
And they will be like family.
Exactly, and they will be like family, and you will be surprised. So it's like, I understand we all go to work for the money, but there are people who don't make money their priority business.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are people who will go to those people's house, will care for them, and will invest in them. I've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they'll be like family by the end of it. Mm-hmm. And it can be really hard for them, that caregiver, when they lose the client. The client passes away, whether it be a child who's very sick or adult, it can be really, really difficult for them. So I've often met with caregivers or called them afterwards to say, how are you doing? We just lost a client in 23 who I've been seeing for probably 2 years, who had a wonderful person from Haiti, young woman. She was young. She was only in her early 20s. She had little kids, but she came every day while the client's spouse was at work. And they just had such a good relationship. While the client had Parkinson's and some other issues, and they ended up in the hospital very ill, and unfortunately never recovered and passed away in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And I called her for several weeks just to see how she was doing. She was devastated. They were like friends, like they became so close, like daughter and mother. And the patient's daughter also got along very well with this caregiver. She lived a little way away. They kept the connection, they kept in contact. Mm-hmm. And it can be really important to make sure that caregiver is okay after losing, whether it be the family caregiver or unpaid. Make sure they're okay. Check in with them.
Yeah.
Because they can be very attached.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And now they are like,
oh yeah.
What am I going to do?
Oh, yeah. And that lady that I was talking about earlier, when she passed away last year, and that caregiver, that lady was crying so hard at the church. Yeah. Somebody even asked, oh, is she one of the daughters?
Yes,
and
she was. In the end, she was.
I turned around and I said, yes.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see that relationship. I've had a couple of ALS clients, which is, I think, the hardest thing in my career is working with somebody with ALS, because typically they're younger and they're deteriorating quickly, And one in particular I was very close with, and when he passed away, his aide was there, his home health aide was there in the room with his wife and the kids. I had coffee with her 2 or 3 times after, just to make sure she was okay. Very traumatic. And a big loss, And we're still in touch on Facebook. I noticed that his wife posts things every now and again. Mm-hmm. This caregiver went on and got married and had kids, so she's moved in a different direction. I think she works at a hospital. But we still keep, and every time the wife posts something about him in his memory, she's right on. She's right there, and I'm there, and we're still having the memories,
Okay.
And it's been, it'll be 6 years at the end of this year. We're still in touch.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. No, it is a very important topic, and I'm glad that you were able to make it and have that discussion around it.
Yeah,
today.
I think some of the things that you should just say to the caregivers, make sure you tell them to ask for help. Mm-hmm. Maybe have them journal, write things down, and make sure they're taking care of their thoughts and writing things down if they can. And, just tell them that they can make time for themselves, even if it's going for a walk for 20 minutes. or going outside to sit outside or doing something that they can do.